yo. Yo, 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 yo. Yo, 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 yo. Hi, it's me, Adam. I'm back. We're doing this whole THISTOPIA thing, a platform for connecting, conversing, play, creative catharsis, making the best of what we have, and hopefully being inspired and making little mini epiphanies along the way. Um, Part of this is going to be a little segment I call Synthesizing, which is what this is all about. It's conversations with people that I know and love and respect that are creative human beings in their own right, that have processes and methods of input to output that I love, and I think that we can all learn from. Today, I'm posting an interview that I did this morning with a colleague, a collaborator, a homie, my guy Eric Timothy Carlson. We went to college together back at the Minneapolis College of Art and Design. First time I ever met Eric, I saw this kid wearing all black. During the break, he'd be smoking cigarettes. Then he'd come into our drawing class in like Foundation 1 drawing. And we both loved to draw, but we loved to draw in very different ways. And I remember one of his drawings was this absolutely beautiful, like charcoal drawing of cigarette butts. And I remember just staring at it and watching him draw and being obsessed with his method of mark making. It was so himself and so observational. And we ended up kind of creating a gang with our friends Greg and Isaac and Derek, called KHS, which stood for Black Hooded Sweatshirt. And I'm wearing this shirt in reference to that gang that we had. And we did a lot of stuff around music. We did live wheat pasting and screen printing at shows. We did a lot of screen printed posters. At the time, I was trying to be an intern at Aesthetic Apparatus. They didn't give me the internship. I was a junior in college, but Eric got the internship, which is very cool. Never been jealous about that. In fact, I don't even think about it at all ever. It's not in my mind. I don't care. Shout out Aesthetic Apparatus. But at the end of the day, I love the way that this human being thinks and works. And we talk a little bit about process. We talk about collage, and we talk about creative juxtaposition. And I think this is going to be like the first part of a couple parts. I want, this is kind of like setting the stage for how homie thinks, and I want to have him back to talk about some really exciting projects he's done for Bon Iver. He's done the last couple campaigns and covers and projects with Bon Iver around their album releases, which is a phenomenal work of art. Something I actually used to teach in my class. I would make them all watch interviews with Eric talking about the process of creating the Bon Iver artwork. We talk a little bit about his collaboration with the New York Public Library, and hopefully in the future we'll talk about some other stuff as well. But yeah, this is Eric Timothy Carlson out of New York City. You can check him out at erictimothycarlson.com, at Eric Timothy Carlson on Instagram if you're into that shit, or whatever. It's Thanksgiving. If you celebrate Thanksgiving, I hope you find time to find some gratitude to those that you love and to the things that you've gotten. We're very fortunate to be able to create a platform like this and have conversations. And yeah, I'm super grateful in general. And big shout out to the Indigenous and First Nations people to whose land this was before we took it and colonized it. I'm Mexican American, so my background is a mix of, the colonizer and the colonized, and it's been something that I've been dealing with my whole life and thinking about that kind of binary. Anyway, I digress. Let's go talk to Eric Timothy Carlson in New York City. And just a little caveat, Eric has roommates who were kind enough to let us chat, like in their living area, out loud. So you will hear a little bit of them existing as human beings in the background. I hope it's not too distracting, but I totally get it. They're there like they're making Thanksgiving dinner so that they can, have friends and hang out, and I'm taking up their time. So, I appreciate y'all. I appreciate the roommates. Let's go. We are synthesizing with Eric Timothy Carlson. Imagine there's like really dope synthesizing music here. It's like synthesizing, 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 synthesizing. Yo.
Yeah.
That's better. Hey man.
How's it
Okay,
going?
good. I'm trying to figure out the view. How do I do my little viewport thing over here? Technology. There we go. I just needed to extend the screen.
Yep, I'm doing the same thing.
Tight. Are you in a studio space right now?
This is my apartment. Got my roommate. So
That's a great apartment. I thought it was a studio space. You're combining the worlds.
you know what? That was the start of quarantine. It's combining the worlds.
Oh yeah.
I mean this zone that I'm in here. We have like a little desk zone. It's like chill. But
Do you have a bed or do you sleep on the concrete floor?
the desk. I have a room right over there.
Nice.
With a bed in it.
That's tight. How you doing?
Doing well.
Good.
You're in a studio.
I have like a little office area in our new apartment. So yeah, it's just basically a room of books.
Mm-hmm. That's what studio.
I guess that is a studio. Yeah.
Good solid studio setup. In Los Angeles.
Yeah, we're in LA. Correct. City of Angels, as they
They're
call it.
treating you all right.
Yeah, it's cool, man. It's been interesting adjusting. Do you remember? Did you ever take the class with Ruth at MCAD? That was where we were introduced to Yifu Tuan, the book about space and place. We've talked about that, right?
I never took the class. No, I don't know. I don't know.
Oh, that book and Ruth, that book changed my fucking life. And every time I move or have to like be in a new physical location, I always kind of reread certain parts. It's about reorienting yourself in space and how place is what happens when you like imprint your experience onto something abstract like space.
Mm-hmm.
And it's taught me to be patient with new spaces because I always get to a new space, like a new apartment, a new neighborhood, and I'm like, this sucks, you know? And then I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, remember that it takes time and effort and attention and like to build love with a place or a thing or whatever. And yeah, so shout out to Yifu Tuan, who's like in his 90s, I think. In but yeah, man.
It takes like a month or two to put everything out. I mean, I can take everything out and put it like where it kind of should be, like in a week or two. But then there's like the lifespans of each component of it, where it's like at a month, it's like settled in a certain way. At a second month, you gotta like move things around a little bit more again. But it really takes like a few months, let alone a year or like 3 years for it to like graduate its points. And like this spot did that too, where it's like we made certain progress in the first couple months, but then it really was 3 years later at the top of quarantine where we were like, all right, let's finish all the things we were going to start 3 years ago, and like really made this place the spot it was supposed to be, because really had to be here.
The spot it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you believe in spatial fate?
Intense, at least. Yeah, but yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, well, I like that we started there. Nice to nice to see you, man. Thanks for on a whim being like, yeah, man, let's chat. Um, I just a couple days ago was like, I want to have a place to explore, and it was initially going to start off just with like D&D and like RPG stuff, where it was going to be about narrative storytelling and mechanics and creative process and music, and just a place for me to combine all those things.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized if it's all about connection, it has to be about conversation and like synthesis. And yeah, so I'm just going to have weird meandering conversations with people, and it's an excuse to hang out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it's good to see you, man.
Nice to see you too. Um, Eric Timothy Carlson. This is where it gets a little formal at the beginning.
Sure.
In case some people are like, who the fuck is this dude? And who's this other dude? Um, so are you from? You're not from Minnesota, right? You're from a state around Minnesota.
No, I mean I grew up squarely in Minnesota. I was born in uh, Walnut Creek, California, Bay Area, California, and moved to Minnesota when I was 3. So I have very few memories of California, but identified strongly as Californian as a child because I was in the middle of nowhere, Minnesota, and I wanted to be a
How did
surfer.
how did you manifest as a child? How did you manifest that identifying as a Californian in
Just like getting
cornfields?
t-shirts with like surfboards on it, and yeah, I mean, I was like aware of a certain otherness that I had, like growing up in like rural Minnesota. Um, that's about the extent of it.
That's awesome.
I
Okay.
knew I wasn't from there. There's like
Yeah.
other people in my town that like they're like extended families there. They're their grandparents, their great grandparents, whatever. They're
Yeah.
from this town of 2,000 people. But
Yeah. They got like
I
4-H
wasn't.
4-H badges and you're wearing like checkered Vans and you're like,
Yeah, pretty much. My brother had a very cool. Maybe I had him hand me down for a second, but there was like some like vintage pair of Airwalks where it was like checkered Airwalks, high tops, and had like the bright pink soles with like that wild like wavy guy. They're like old logo. You know that guy?
I don't think I
It's
know
from
that guy.
it's like a wild man like Airwalk wavy dude logo.
A wild man airwalk wavy dude.
Yeah, you'll see it and you'll be like, yeah, that's it.
I think I couldn't have described it better. That's dope. That's cool. Um, and so your space right now that you're in, it's weird how much like space is just what everyone has to talk about because everyone's relationship to space is totally different.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but kind of fortunately in a weird way. So you're combining these worlds now. How has that changed your fucking life? Studio and home, like just mashed into one thing.
Right. Well, I mean it was great to make this place kind of feel, I don't know, cozy and productive.
Mm,
And it was necessary. It's also not out of my wheelhouse. I've
yeah, for sure.
worked from home for many years. Um, but then I've also, the last 3 years, 4 years, just plus whatever, I've been sharing a studio space kind of just down the street from here with some very close collaborators. And but then at the top of this year in February, I had moved into a new studio space, and I got um, into this like studio program, and I have for a number of years like lined up um, a really beautiful studio down in Dumbo.
Hmm.
And so February was like brand new. I had just kind of like moved into the place, right? No, space before,
But
but
it's
yeah.
what it's whatever you want. Yeah.
Whatever you want. I had moved my stuff in and had unpacked it, and then shortly thereafter, people were like, "You gotta stay home," um, and it's like 3 miles or so bike ride. So it took a little while to start feeling comfortable, like here in New York, like doing a commute, even in a bike ride, just like being out and going into this like building and whatever. So it was important to like set up the apartment space, and I was doing drawing and kind of and some animation projects, and um yeah, just kind of like
Hmm.
being getting comfortable again working at home. And I think it was great. It opened up just new, I don't know, it opened up doors, or like it let me just kind of be comfortable and focus in a certain way of working that I haven't been working in the last number of years. And I think I'm prepared to do that. Like I was like, oh, 6 weeks of like drawing at a desk sounds great. I haven't like had the necessity to do that, for a few years now. But at the same time, I guess like that month, 2 months later, once biking around and getting out of the house, like all that stuff started to feel really good and important to be doing. Having the studio to ride down to became super valuable too. Like, move your body for a few miles, step into this kind of like big window studio space that's kind of like a private space, and was very powerful and very important. I respond greatly to space. It's very important in my like thought process and practice. Kind of always has.
Yeah.
And I'm malleable, or like I'm flexible with what that space is. Like, spent a decade working out of coffee shops before even like working out of my own house, essentially.
What do you
But
what do you mean by, so you said big window space? So initially I'm like, oh, that feels like
literally
you're,
windows. Yeah.
oh, got it. I imagined like a ground floor, like retail window where it was this weird public performative experience, but then you said it was very private. And then I was like, that's not it. But I get it. So you have beautiful windows that let light in and it feels very
Yeah,
open, but it's still your private thing. Cool.
yeah, not trying to be on display necessarily, but something came up in there in my mind. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I think about the words brain space with it. Also, it's like something about making a studio or having a space that's important to the practice. It's not just the physical space, but when you're in the place that is conducive to it, that's like brain space. It's like your brain feels bigger in a place sometimes, whatever is best for you, or for me at least, I feel that.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's something too I think this is something I'm always trying to toggle, and sometimes it's easy to forget. Like you said something about the word work. I know you're very attuned to language. I think everyone is, but one way that you have always been attuned to language, and the way that you've played with scriptography, written language, symbolism of language, how people connect those things together, and then how you create intention around those things. I think everyone does it in different ways, but I love the way that you do it with your work, and it's super super interesting. But you were talking about you said the word work,
Uh-huh.
and like I have a full-time gig, right? I have a full-time job where my job is to be creative, quote unquote, but it's still like a full-time gig, right?
Uh-huh.
And often I have to like shake myself around and dance around and be like, yo, my job is to make these unexpected connections. Like that's why I'm here. That's why I exist in the world. That's my point, I think. Um, and trying to think of how it is work. You know what I'm saying? I feel like, yeah, when you're like, yeah, it's still work. And then you also called it practice. Like, how do you kind of reconcile the idea of it being work? Is it the monetary aspects, or are you like, no, it is like a thing that I just do all the time? Yeah, I'd love to hear you talk about that a little bit.
I mean, it's like yes, is the answer, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I feel like they're casually it would all be so interchangeable. Practice it's kind of been, there's been some point in making it that way, or like that kind of blurry space between work and practice and just like creative space, or like, it all kind of like feels a little bit just like a duty or something too. um but I mean, there is stuff, of course, that like falls hard into like work category, where it's like projects you've taken on for a fee, or for a favor, or whatever it is, like something you gotta like, crank out and get to the people that are expecting it from you. um I feel pretty, blessed, or things have been going in a direction that I'm, fairly satisfied with, like in that like work fits into my practice, and like that I find, common space in the work I'm taking on, um, with what I would like to be doing, things that like, you know, work that's fulfilling to the thoughts, ideas, and like art that I would like to be involving myself in as well. So like, yeah, I don't know. I feel fortunate that I have that. I mean, I've the you know, quarantine and pandemic kind of lifestyle has like continually had that turning in my mind a little bit too, where it's I'd at the start of things, a number of projects fell off the bat kind of right away, and kind of to be expected, like working a lot with music and collaborating with people that are kind of like out in front of people, and um, yeah, that stuff wasn't going to happen this year in any capacity. So that stuff kind of like disappeared, and like right away I was like, that's like a little disconcerting. But it, you know, it wasn't a matter of weeks before like I more or less had a very full schedule as far as like work, you know, to do, and it kind of stayed like that. It's been like that all year, where it's like I've like something important to do was actually to kind of like try and make space and be selective about what I was letting into my life in this time, just because like especially now when things are like social fabric's really delicate, and there's a lot of anxiety like in the world and personally, you just like pick up on it. And so I just like, it was really important to not be accepting things that maybe you would otherwise, but like if it was going to bum you out or like cause you any anxiety down the road, or kind of just like something you're going to wake up and be like, why am I working on this like right now while the world is like feeling like this? Like I tried not to have as much of that as possible, like things that I had a question about, like how I was spending my time. And of course, like things sneak by you and you're just like, I fucking should have said no, you know, but that felt, for the most part, felt pretty good, and makes me aware, you know, that I'm fortunate to be able to have that decision.
Yeah, man.
But I don't know. Yeah, beyond that, there of course like is other delineations between like work and play, and like work and like the artwork, or but they find the crossover as well. You know, like if you didn't need to make money, if you didn't need to make a living, like would you be doing the things that you're doing? You know,
100%. Yeah.
You know, there's some things that I do that I would imagine like yeah, that would be part of my life. Like I would, from what I can imagine right now, like you know, I would want to be making artwork. I would like to have a studio. I'd like to be like producing, but I don't know how much I would be making. Like I don't know if like album artwork would be what I would be like the passionate like
Yeah,
focal point of it all, or something like that.
for sure.
Um,
Yeah, if you like stripped away all the trappings of capitalism and responsibilities that we had to exist, and you had like true freedom, I would probably be an accountant.
just counting your money, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too. Like, without mentioning my employer, I'm trying to figure out how much I can talk about like music space, you know. But when you talk about album covers, I always think about like I think I would definitely still be involved in like the visual or experiential manifestation of music as like
Yeah,
play, right? You
it's
do the
been
same thing
important to me
anyway.
forever. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been thinking about it since I was, you know, 10 or whatever. But
But like
so
would it
yeah,
be the album cover? It's like, is it the thing that is sold to people, or is it how to dimensionalize that experience for a group of people, probably in a real space? And like how do you add
like
value?
Bjork or something.
We'll say that again.
Like Bjork.
She's the one. Yeah, I have like a little "What would Bjork do" kind of button in the back of my head. I'm always just like, what would she do, and what is she doing? And 100. Yeah, Bjork's the best. Love it.
She's pretty cool.
She's pretty cool. Have you met Bjork? Have you worked with Bjork?
No.
No.
She was like living somewhere in Brooklyn a number of years back, probably still is, I don't know. But I feel like there was a lot of like, oh, I sang karaoke with Bjork last night, like conversations that would occur.
There's like a famous Portland story. I'm a big David Byrne head. We just got like the Stop Making Sense. You've seen Stop Making Sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have like an original print, huge, framed in our living room. I think that as a musical experience, directed by Jonathan Demme, came out in 1984. This like conceptual, growing, evolving art project that was a beautiful cinematic work of music is incredible. And David Byrne does a lot of things really well. But there's all these Portland stories about him coming to town and doing karaoke, and like no one knew it was him. And he would, and everyone was like, that guy has a horrible voice, and someone was like, that's David Byrne. And then like a bunch of people showed up. I like that secret.
Yeah. That guy's a horrible voice.
Yeah. Did you say he has a horrible voice?
I mean, that's what I said. I don't believe that.
Oh, got it. I thought you hated David Byrne's voice.
No.
I just want to say, I appreciate, I know it's hard, like, doing these kind of things when you have roommates, and it's cool that they're letting you do this.
Yeah, I was like, for a second, I was like, oh, should I be wearing headphones? Or, I don't know, what's the protocol?
Yeah, so that's a thank you to them as well.
They're very cool.
That's dope. I'm wearing this sweatshirt. It's a black hooded sweatshirt.
Mm-hmm.
I saw you didn't get the memo. I'm wearing it.
Mine's at my studio, yeah.
Yeah, I thought this is your studio.
Well, home studio.
Because in college we had a gang called KHS, aka Black Hooded Sweatshirt. So I'm wearing this as an homage. To be completely honest, I was going to wear it anyway, and then I remembered, so it perfectly worked out. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to ask you about something. I was like going through a bunch of your work again, which I do often, not gonna lie. And I was like looking at this book, which I ordered a couple years ago.
Yes, awesome. NYPLPCETC.
NYPLPCETC, edition 1. New York Public Library, Public Collection?
Picture Collection.
Picture Collection, Eric Timothy Carlson, which is a book. It's a picture book, which is perfect for me.
Yeah, me too.
And I think I wanted to queue up asking you about what happens when two things that don't necessarily go together are put next to one another.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that book's definitely dealing with that.
Yeah.
That was a big part of the fun of working on that book. Yeah, I mean, that's like that is a thing that I work with a lot just in general, also across the board. I love it. That's like, I don't know, I think of like dumb collage is something I've called it in my head, where it's not a matter of like cutting out the fruit bowl to like glue on top of somebody's shoulders so their head looks like a fruit bowl, or like getting like tricky. It's just like taking like a big image and then a smaller image, and you put the smaller image on top of the big image, and like you have a collage. It's dropping another layer into Photoshop, and it just like sits on top of it, and you're like, that does it. You know, you don't need to do any tricks. You just put things next to each other or on top of each other, and it changes everything. And it either, it changes when you put two forms of space or two objects that deal with space or color, like on top of each other. There's that formal relationship that changes, but then there's of course like the symbolic things that occur when things are next to each other. So like one thing about like dumb collage, you can put, whatever, you have Albers color on top of a color, and then like you have something incredible that happens. It's not about space, it's about just like how your eyes deal with these things, and like how you see color in comparison to color around it. And but then the moment you put like a forced perspective room on top of another forced perspective room, and like you have these like multiple like forms of depth, like that makes you have to makes your brain like have to deal with this, being like, which depth are we seeing as space, and which one, like, are they both space, or is one flat, is one whatever. But then in that book, it's 400 pages, and it's like 1,200 images, and it's, for the most part, it's like one image on one page and one image on another page. Sometimes there's like two images on a page, but for the most part, it's pretty simple, like, design wise. And there's not a lot of trickery. There's not a lot of like messing with the image. I'm not like cropping. I'm cropping some things lightly, but like, or like zooming in on the important part. But for the most part, I'm not like cutting out a shape. I'm not like changing any colors. I'm not like affecting the material. I'm just putting an image next to another image, but also in the wake of whatever images have just come before it, and then anticipation of what images may come next. But yeah, I don't know, you put like a pile of cans next to like a bald eagle in the trash, like you're gonna say something like with that. Or I don't know, like if you open up a spread in there, like, or there's like it's like a woman in a gas mask next to like a red door with a cross on it.
Should I just open up to a spread? See what we
Sure.
got? It's like roulette. And this is just the first page I open up to. Can you see it?
Right. We got like Gloria Steinem. We got women's suffrage on the right. One thing that just brings up in my mind is that, like, looking at the typography involved in the women's suffrage movement is incredible. Like, they're making these like incredibly crafted like banners and like billboards and hand painted signs throughout, all sorts of stuff. If you like dig into like the stuff that they were making during that, there's like some of the highest craft typography in a political like movement was like women's suffrage, no doubt. I don't know a lot about it, but it's seemingly a lot of like typography. There seem to have been a lot of women in typography kind of turn of the century, but as in a very different capacity than what we're, than how things work now. But
and that was one spread. That came out of one spread.
That's one spread, right? So, I mean, I've spent so much time with those images that I can like, so many of them mean a lot to me, and like I can kind of speak at length about a lot of it. But I mean, even that section involves like signage and murals and protest, and it turns into, some pages later, like violence and authority and police. So like that spread is dealing with that, but you're getting there out of like perhaps like a sign about milk prices, and a page about like the devaluation of the dollar, and about like, murals on movie theaters, and like psychedelic murals from San Francisco in the 60s or something like that, like just a few pages before. But like, and they're all like very different worlds, but if you see them in context of each, you make all these connections. You're like, what is the same and what is the difference? And it just brings to mind one of the initial ideas I had going into that whole project, stepping into the public library picture collection, I was thinking about murals essentially, and human mark making is how I would say it. And so it's just like we have a limited canvas space, you know, as humanity being on the planet Earth. And, you know, we are definitely part of like the Earth as a system, but we're with like the Anthropocene kind of like thing in mind. We are also at a stage, a point of potential to make serious marks on this surface. And like giant, like whatever ancient geoglyphs, as an example of like a very literal example of like the mural on the surface of the earth kind of thing, which are incredible images and creations. But you know, more horrifically perhaps is like the highways, you know, that like spill across like our country, or like if you look at any like even, you know, satellite image of the Midwest, like everything is like parceled out.
Yeah.
It's like squares and squares and squares, and it's farms and roads and towns, and like there's no, you know, we've had this massive like even just visual effect on like what the surface of this place is. So like, so thinking about murals as someone who likes to make an actual mural, but like scaling it all the way up into like how we as like the ant colony are kind of like changing the face of the surface of the planet. So, but then, yeah, I don't know, murals. Upon looking in the mural folder, someone accidentally misfiled an image into the mural folder, which it was supposed to go in the murder folder. And it was a photo of like police looking at a crime scene in like the 20s or something like that. And a black and white photo of a man on the ground had been shot, and the police like looking at the scene, and there's blood, black and white blood, all over the, you know, street. And I was like, how appropriate for this blood splatter mural murder to make its way into the mural folder. Just I guess as an early example of being like, how is that a mural? Yeah, I don't know, disparate categories, but like the big narrative, I guess.
I wanted that prompt of things put together to turn into exactly what it turned into, which is just talking about things going together and the connections that are made in your work and art in the world. Everything's perfect. There's something really interesting about when you mentioned the marks at a massive scale that we're making. And of course, I think of being, you know, from Minnesota and flying around the first time and looking out the airplane window and trying to figure out what's what and what's organic and what's unnatural, and seeing the things that are perfectly circular and patterned in the midst of beautiful meandering streams and green amorphous forests, you know, and seeing how those things are cut up, and realizing like a lot of the time in Minnesota, it's usually farms. It's farms that have these strict geometries because they have to have these patterns, because I don't know, like the mechanization of farming. And I understand that. And it's hard for me to be like, fuck that, you know, because I
that makes sense. Yeah.
respect that for what, you know, for what we need. But also
like what it's how you sell things, you know. It's like, I'm gonna buy 100 acres, like this square.
Yep.
100 acres, you know, whatever.
Totally. Yeah. And that could say, I mean, like this thing is a part of a project called THISTOPIA, being this weird space between dis and you, and the fact that utopia isn't real and dystopia isn't real, and really all that we have is what we have, and we have to make the best of it, and we all know it's fucked up. And I wanted it to be about conversations that hopefully are like connective points that spark some kind of something for other people, right? That's all it's about. And if anyone watches this, I mean, of course, people are going to watch it because they love Eric and like, because your work is dope, or people can be, who's this guy? Oh, he's fucking dope. But the idea is that there's little things that come out of it that people will then go off and synthesize on their own.
Yeah.
But the idea of topia, same root word as topography. It's about a space. And And yeah, I mean, to me, so much of it comes back to like spatial metaphor. Like so much of this shit comes back to language and spatial metaphor. And yeah, when you were talking about the spaces that we carve out for ourselves in the world, whether intentionally or not, yeah, it's all related. That's all I wanted to say about that. There's something very monk-like about your whole situation, like from the bricks on the walls that seem like you're in an abbey,
Uh-huh.
uh,
I'm like
to
wearing my like tunic,
yeah, your tunic with the
unbleached tunic. Yeah.
what's the word? Your tonsure, is that it? The tonsure. Um, yeah, it's cool. Um,
I have a tuft of hair back here that's like
it's just a cross. It's shaped into a cross. Did you grow up religious?
my father is a minister, yes.
That's right. I knew that. I just want to, do you think that at all? I mean, of course it affected your shit.
Yeah.
Of course it did in so many ways. But have you internalized that, or have you explored that at all in your work? Or are you always exploring it?
Yeah. I mean, I think always like, you know, it's funny the things that you just kind of like that recur in your thought process like your entire life or something like that. But like I've been thinking about this forever. It's like as a child, like, you know, being like, oh, I should read the Bible, right? You know, and I was like, would look through trying to read the Bible, and I was just like, I can like only be interested in reading like Revelations over and over again because it's just like apocalypse and like 10-headed dragons and like magical seals and, you know, forces of death and destruction parading through our, you know, whatever state our civilization's in. It's exciting stuff. But yeah, it's like, I mean, the magic is real, like throughout like all of the biblical stuff, no doubt. But like, it's very viscerally real in like the fantasy realm, like version of it when you get to the end of days. So I don't know. Yeah, for apocalypse has kind of always been like a kind of a large interest point. So it's, you know, what a trip to be in like, you know, an apocalypse all our own. But
dude, 100%, man. You know, there's when you said revelations, revelations. The word apocalyptos is a Greek word, and it means like something that's uncovered or revealed. So it makes sense that it's called revelations in English because it means revelation, a revealing. And I was just looking up the etymology of the word epiphany, and epiphany also means revealing in Greek. It's just a different kind of revealing. So epiphany and apocalypse both mean something that is revealed. And it makes total fucking sense. The apocalypse one is a little different because we think of it as being like a grand ending. We think of it selfishly being like an end of humanity.
Right. That's like the vernacular understanding or something at this point, you know? Yeah.
But it's, I think when
Massive
reframed,
systemic change essentially is what it is or something.
exactly, it's a change. Yeah. When reframed a little bit as like, an ending that reveals something else. One, it puts it all in perspective a little bit differently, and then you realize why every single culture has an idea of some kind of apocalypse in the future, and you're like, oh, that makes sense because humans die, and we're taking our little microcosm of life and just expanding it and putting it over our culture or our community or like our arc of our civilization. But that whole like epiphany and apocalypse epiphany and be like, oh, they're both just a revealing of some sort was super exciting. It was an epiphany I had like yesterday morning. It's like, cool.
An epiphany. I mean, for real though, like I feel like those moments of epiphany like has the potential to change everything. If you internalize it, you know, there's the thing that like the tragedy of like epiphany is when it escapes you, or like when it never fully materializes and you feel it, you're like, holy shit, this is it. Like this is the moment of clarity. I think of that. That's like a phrase that always like hits my head sometimes too. It's like oh, a moment of clarity. But it doesn't always totally settle, and like, but if you can grasp it, there's the potential to change everything with the epiphany. um,
Yeah, the idea of like the unapplied epiphany. Like the
right.
tragedy of epiphany is
Unaware. Yeah.
escaping, but when you're like, oh, I made this incredible connection and it's in my head and I have no idea what to do with it in my
Sure.
art or in my love life or in conversation, like that's
Hmm. Or just perspective,
yeah.
understanding something, and just being like, oh, I had a way to like feel okay about this, but I'm not feeling it anymore.
The tragedy of epiphany.
um, I don't know. I guess still on my mind. There, like as far as yeah, some of the effect of like growing up in like religious home too. But like I mean, just the symbolism, internalizing symbolism, and uh, of course was a huge part of something that still remains like very in the vocabulary or in the interest of exploring. um, and I don't know, and I mean and then even turning into like mythology and allegory and all these kind of like of ways of just kind of like speaking about bigger ideas with isolated kind of works. All of that stuff is super important. And like ritual symbolism kind of like on every level, from like the glyph to like to the ritual, and to like even like mass subscribing to like meaning and importance of the image, of the icon, of participation, of community, like how these things can like bond communities. And I feel like in so many different ways have like touched on and addressed so many of those things and so many aspects of work. So like yeah, it's probably pretty squarely laced all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'm going to ask you about something super contemporary.
nice.
And not that it means I'm super interested in it, but I'd love your take on it as you talk about mythology and the contemporization of like the ancient and just like how do you feel about like the Marvel Cinematic Universe being one of the largest things in the world that so many human beings are involved in? Do you know what I'm
That's crazy.
saying?
I do. It's funny because like I loved the X-Men Saturday morning cartoon. That was sick. Um, but yeah, I guess growing up, comic books still felt fairly like niche or like young or like teenager bedroom kind of vibe of a thing, right? Like besides like Batman and Superman kind of breaking out into a bigger culture, um, the rest of the comic books felt like not that thing.
Mm-hmm.
So like I don't know. Let's see. I loved X-Men the cartoon, and like some of those video games was certainly like heavily inspired by those images and those like drawings, and comic books like had a huge influence on just like helping me learn how to draw and craft. And so yeah, they were important to me personally before they became what they are now. I feel like what they it's not like they're incredible movies now. Like the things that have been made now are like fairly, they're probably like squarely funded by the military and like so they're kind of just like ubiquitous pop material at this point. Granted, like some like that Spider-Man multiverse thing, like there was cool stuff in that.
Yeah.
And they, huge budgets put towards like massive fantasy worlds. Like that stuff is cool. I love seeing like imaginary cities and like I go for the spectacle. I watch all of them for sure. Like I enjoy watching all of them. I love the world building that they do, or like just the immersive environments that they make, I think are,
Yeah.
they're well funded, so like they're typically pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I imagine like a pitch meeting years ago when they're and in the present in like the keynote, the guy's like, humanity creates stories, and then it's like Beowulf, Gilgamesh, the Odyssey, all these like dudes, heroic journey shit. And they're like, it's time for a new story. And we already have it under our noses. And it's like the Marvel logo.
Right.
And then it's like a bunch of logos that of like Lockheed Martin and like the US Army, like all these things. Like
Right.
connect all these dots and create a new, larger narrative. That's what I'm super aware of when I watch the shows. I'm often like, yes, I love seeing Wakanda, and I love that there's like Black Panther narrative. I love that there's like Miles Morales narrative. But there's so much other stuff that is just on a vast level reinforcing things that are maybe like a little scary or problematic. You know, and I think a lot of it's like like military shit, like nationalism, like
Yeah.
I think even prescribing to the idea of a single hero is a little dangerous, you know, like whatever that means. But yeah, it's and it's also talking about visual vernacular on a massive scale, like because it's gonna be something that is so embedded in like children's minds for the rest of their life. Like the shape languages that you use for a spaceship, or the way that the sound they might use for a certain kind of weapon,
where they're like suits fit now or whatever. Yeah.
what all those things are going to become like the foundation of a template for how people think about those visual languages when it comes to fantasy science fiction stories. And we have to know that, like
I mean, like Spawn's cape and chains like are forever part of my like, I'm like, oh, how do I,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly so much of that stuff that like, it would be cool if, people would do some other stuff besides those, give those studios some like work besides like just making more whatever Marvel movies. But at the same time, like the whole like comic book thing currently makes so much sense in how you mentioned like we have this story. So it's like people have been doing the work on that stuff for decades, have massive worlds and massive characters with a massive pre-existing audience. Like it's ready to go. It's like they've made the screenplay time and time again. So and no doubt it makes tons of sense that stuff is being turned into the movies they are. But yeah
man,
it's like it's still nice to be surprised about what movies can be made or something. Remake culture is like, they've managed to remake some cool stuff. But
yeah, well, I don't want to take up too much of your time, and I know that there's people at the house doing stuff.
Thanksgiving, we're making Thanksgiving.
Oh yeah, go make Thanksgiving. I would love to do a follow-up where I ask you about other things if you're down, and just have a conversation again.
Love talking with you, Adam.
Yeah, there's so much. I have like a list of things I wanted to talk about. We didn't talk about any of them. It's like Heartland, and how and language in a blog era, and it's the Bon Iver experience, and what it was like being a part of internalizing a process and letting that turn into output organically, and a bunch of stuff about language I wanted to talk about. But yeah, man, I'm probably going to try to get this up later today on Twitch, and then it'll be up online for a little bit if you want to check it out. I know you have Thanksgiving stuff. Thank you so much for making time, dude.
Absolutely, man.
You're insanely inspirational. I love all your work so much, and I'm excited to have more conversations with you.
Awesome. Yeah, man. Let me know. I'm always a pleasure.
All right. Eric, tell your roommates I said thank you, for real. I appreciate it.
I think they can hear you.
All right, man. Take care. Have a good day.
Peace.
Bye. Yo.
Yeah.
That's better. Hey, man.
How's it going?
Okay, good. I'm trying to figure out the view. How do I do my view? Yo. Oh, hold on. Is the mic up? Yeah, the mic's up. Yo, yo. Okay, here we go. That was a that was a little combo with Eric Timothy Carlson. Again, that was this morning. Appreciate the shit out of him for making time in the midst of Thanksgiving goings on. I should probably get around to some of that myself. Um, Anyone that watched and tuned in, appreciate it. This will be up for a little bit. Feel free to share. Feel free to follow. There'll be more of these coming up with some people that I really love, and I'm sure the conversations will be meandering and as synthesizing as I want them to be. I'd also love to hear any feedback from y'all. This is honestly, it's very much for me to reach out and have the kind of conversations that I miss with people in IRL universe because of the pandemic and quarantine. I'm in LA and it's getting even more locked down right now. So uh, yeah, that idea of space is really changing, and I miss the shit out of people, and I miss the feeling of exhilaration that comes from a great convo, and this is basically an excuse to do that. And if art and idea and epiphany comes from it, all the better. And if we are able to share it, and anyone else feels that same way, that's great. I'm incredibly appreciative. I'm incredibly grateful to be able to do this and to have anyone at all that cares to listen in. Um, I'm gonna go put a shelf together and then play Assassin's Creed Valhalla and do some work for my day job on my day off because that's how we live in out here in the Miracle Mile area, the City of Angels. Be well, take care, give me feedback, and I appreciate you. Signing off. Peace. Still here? You like the music? I'm surprised you hung out this long to the outro. Is your machine broken? All right, we're done.